Hey, we're back. This is going better than I thought, Leslie. I thought by now we'd both be burned out and tired of seeing each other, but welcome. My name is Jeff Harrison, and
I'm Leslie Spore, and I didn't say I wasn't tired and burnt out, but that's okay. Yeah, just kidding.
we're just bent, twisted, and exhausted. That's why we call
That's
it
right.
the Entrepreneurial Podcast. And so how you doing today? Everything going well?
Everything's going excellent. Thank you for asking. How about for yourself?
Good. Hey, I understand your hubby had a little new knee installed. How's that bionic
did.
piece working?
It's pretty good. He's taking a nap right now, but he's actually walking without his walker. It was only done, let's see, what day is this? About 4 days ago. And he's walking without his walker, and he's getting around, and he actually helped somebody move yesterday. Don't tell anybody. I can't believe he did that. And but he's doing really well. He really is. I mean, considering our neighbor had it done a week before him, and he's having much more difficulty. So we're blessed that it's a stress and drama-free knee replacement. It's amazing what they can do these days.
Well, it is. I think back of, somebody got their knee done 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, and they were out of commission for a long period of time. One of the guys that I played pickleball with, he had his hip redone or replaced. 3 weeks later, he was playing at the same level or higher than he was when he left. In 3 weeks. I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah.
I know. I know.
It's wild.
My mom had her knees done in the late 80s, I think, and it was not anywhere the same as this at all. It only takes an hour. Can you believe that? It takes an hour to do the surgery. It takes 4 hours of pre-op and 4 hours of post-op, but the actual surgery itself is an hour. That's somebody who worked in manufacturing all my life and understanding the machine shop and how you drill and tap for things and how you build things. The fact that they can cut out those bones and then put them back together is simply amazing to me. I find that very interesting and incredulous.
I love it. Well, I guess you'd have to first of all, you'd like to do puzzles as a kid, and
Yes.
And B, now you like using robotics because I understand more and more of these operations are done with robotics, with the actual surgeon overseeing them.
Yeah, that's how Dan was.
Yeah, which to me makes perfect sense because now you have precision at a level that's never been experienced before. I think that would aid to the recovery, wouldn't it?
Well, and the other thing is that they spent a lot of time pre-op. I know this is not our podcast, but it's just interesting. Or at least I think it's interesting. They spent a lot of time pre-op measuring and designing the knee specifically for him, which in the old days, you just got a knee. You just got one and they put it in. This one was built specifically for his body. And I think that adds to the success rate with these things. All the doctors told him, wait as long as you can, but because they said you might have to have it done again in 10 or 15 years. Well, at our age, in 10 or 15 years, I don't care if he's hobbling around. He won't care either. But right now, he was bone.
You guys will be racing with those 3-wheelers through Costco.
That's right. So, he was literally bone on bone. The doctor said it was irreversible, unable to be repaired. There was nothing they could do to help him. So they had to replace it. And I'm so happy they did because he's doing really, really well. So
great.
Thank you for asking.
You bet. Well, beyond what we're talking about prosthetics and knee replacements, things like that, it really does tie right into what we're talking about today because we're talking about marketing your business and we're going to talk about 5 sources. And one of the things that Leslie spoke about right then that made me think about it is like, that knee was specifically designed for her husband. That's a huge jump in technology and the cost to do it versus 5 or 10 years ago where it's like, hey, we have a knee, let's make it work for you. Versus now, this is your size. This is exactly what will go in there for you. It's not for Bob, who's next on the table. It's for her husband, Dan, and it's going to have this profound effect on his life. The same thing with marketing. And
absolutely.
So I
that was
think
a good
that's
segue.
really cool. Yeah,
good segue.
Well, I thought about that. Yeah, that was. I thank goodness you said that because I'm like, how are we going to get out of this? I feel a little needy.
Oh yeah.
I might need to take a nap.
Oh my gosh.
So let's talk about marketing your business because now, granted, there may be 1,000 ways to market your business, but we want to put them in things that say these are things that are proven to work, and where should they work and how should they be applied. And within that, keep in mind, it's almost like if you go into the grocery store and you say, I'm going to go down the chip aisle because I want to buy Tostitos. And they're not a sponsor, but this is an example. I'll bet you'll see different types of chips on that aisle. Well, the same thing when we're talking about each one of these, there are different levels within each one of them. And we'll try to carve in or talk about those as we go. So, Leslie,
Right.
I know one that, go ahead.
Before you start on the different five, I would like to say for the people that are listening, especially small business owners who we cater to, is that when you start a business, there are people out there who actually monitor the fictitious business name statement or the publication you have to do to say that you're in business for yourself. And they will immediately start inundating you with opportunities to market your business. And it can be overwhelming about what should you pick and choose to do. And because money is limited generally when you first get started, you want to make sure that what you pick to use to market your business has some value to it and brings you some bang for your buck, right? So you want to be selective. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is minimal or no money that you can do. I believe that's true to market your business so that you can take advantage, because most marketing is designed for big companies. I mean, I always saw myself on a billboard, have my business on a billboard. And I've done that a few times now, but it's extremely cost prohibitive. And so you have to think about, is that the best way to get that's a good for building brand, but is that a good way for marketing? So we want to give you some options on how to market your business for little to no cost so that you too can be successful in building your client base. Now you may go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I think that's really important. And I just want to peel something back. And if you look at any business that's successful, they have a very simple process. And what it may seem complicated, whether it's Apple or Starbucks or whomever, Nike, they have a product, they have an offer, and they have a way for you to take advantage of that offer. If you have those three things in place, all the things we're going to talk about, you can weave that in to help enhance your offer. As an example, Leslie, if someone to reach out to you, what is your offer for your business?
We do a gift certificate of 6 hours for the price of 4. We usually give that to real estate agents and other people as a closing gift for free. We give it to them as a $250 value. And so that we can try to encourage people to sign up with us. It's an organic methodology for marketing. It's not a discount, but my cost on it is less than if I offered a discount. So that's a whole other topic we probably should get into at some point about how you measure the ROI or return on the investment for what you put into something for marketing versus what you get out. I know for a fact, like when I did the billboards, if I got 2 clients off those billboards, it paid for itself, right? I knew I just only had to get 2 and they did the bare minimum of work with us. That would pay for the billboard. So you have to know what kind of return do you need from whatever you choose to do in order to make it worth your while. That's really important, because I think sometimes people just go and I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this, and they're all over the place. And that may not yield them what they want out of it. For example, I did car wash. You've ever seen those business cards at a car wash? There's a whole bunch of them.
I certainly have. Yep.
I bought into that one time, and it cost me an arm and a leg to do it. Because I didn't know, I thought, I'll do this. Those cards sat up there for a year, and nobody called. At the very last day of the very last week when I was going, this is going to be over with, somebody called me. And do you know that in this case, and making my case backwards. But in this case, that one client more than paid for that whole year of business cards. Only got, but it just was lucky that that happened. And you know why it wasn't a good place for me is because people who people who do their own car wash or take it for car wash are not really my clients. My people want mobile car wash to come to them, right?
Yeah.
So you got to really understand the marketing piece of who your target client is and where they operate and what they need and all of that stuff. So it's a little bit more than just send a mailer out, but we'll get to all of that. So,
yeah, I think that's a good point. Well, the first one, again, as I mentioned, this is one of Leslie's favorites that she's in the Hall of Fame for newsletters. Talk to us about that, because I think when it comes to newsletters, you know, I said off air that if you lead with a newsletter, and this is just me in looking at data, a lot of times that's not going to work for you, but you use newsletters in such a different, unique way. Tell us about that.
I do. I write newsletters. I've changed my format over the years. They used to be really long, and people have always loved them because I write from my perspective, personal perspective, and they're more like a blog than they are a newsletter. It is not a hard sell. Never is it a hard sell. I tell stories. I talk about my life. I will wind it around. So at the end, I can say, you know, this is what we can do to fix whatever I was talking about. But the newsletter itself is not a hard sell. And I think that that's the mistake most people make when they're trying to do a newsletter. It's all about, here's my offerings, buy from me, call me now, do this, do that. I don't do that. I write a story and people love it. In fact, if I let up on, I do 2 a month for each of my companies, 2 for Executive Heirs, 2 for Concierge Business Solutions. And when I miss them, I hear about it. My readers email me and say, are you okay? What is going on? Why do I not have a newsletter? So I will say that they can take time. In the beginning, it would take me 8 to 10 hours or 12 hours to write a newsletter. These days, it takes me 10 or 15 minutes because I avail myself of some AI technology. And I have already hired somebody else to format them and find pictures for them and publish them. So I don't have to do that piece. And I only pay I think it's $75 a newsletter. So it's very affordable just for the amount of hours it saves me. If you do them, again, it's always data and math. If I say my time is worth $300 an hour personally, and it takes me $75 to have somebody else do what would take me anywhere for 2 or 3 hours worth of work, believe me, there is value there. So you just have to bite the bullet and say, okay, what makes sense? And who, as we talked about before, who can I get to do something that I don't enjoy and will free me up to do things I do that further allows me to market my business. But newsletters work when they're personal and when they're stories and when they're informational. You can write about, one time I did an article for a newspaper about Valentine's Day and the history of Valentine's Day and how that came to be. And then I got a byline on it. So I still got the branding and the marketing for it without it being a hard sell from my company. So you really, if I could offer you one piece of advice today, I think newsletters are good. You need to be consistent. I guess I'm going to offer you more than one piece. You need to be consistent in your publication, and they need to not be a hard sell. If it's a hard sell, you might as well forget doing it. They just don't. Nobody wants to read that.
Leslie, well, when it comes to newsletters, do you think today, here around 2025, is that a lead piece, or is that a piece that you would use with an established clientele? Like, would you use it to generate new leads, or would you use it to extend your customer service and your business aware, that type of thing?
I would like to use it to get new leads. Unless my existing client base refers us, it is not technically a lead generator, not like the example we used in the last podcast about the guy who cleans barbecues. Mm-hmm. He gets new business for cleaning barbecues off of his newsletters. I have occasionally gotten work off of my newsletters, but more it's about telling my existing database about other things we can do that they may not have realized we could do. And then in that case, they will contact us for additional services. But mostly I use it to keep my face in front of my clients, and so that they know I'm here, know I'm approachable, and stay involved in our business. People, it's not a cliche when people say, you want to do business with people you know. And, and I want to give you real quick one example in a newsletter. I was really surprised by this, so I want to share it with our listeners. I had a guy I followed for years and years and years on a newsletter. I loved his newsletters. He was a company that wrote newsletters for people or counseled people, consulted with people about how to do a newsletter. And he did a great job, and he was funny. I loved he always had little quizzes at the end, and it just was a really engaging newsletter. I enjoyed it. And then he retired. And I don't know if I've talked about this with you before or not, but he retired, and all of his newsletters changed over to retirement stuff. And I'm not there. I'm not, I wish I could retire, but I'm not at retirement yet. So it wasn't of any interest to me. And it's so disappointing to me. I'm sure he's just as funny and just as talented, but I have no interest in his topic now. So I really don't really read him anymore, which is sad because he's so good. But you've got to make sure you know what your audience wants. I think that's why they're reading you in the first place. If you abruptly do a 90 on them or a 180 and change what you're talking about, you may lose people. But if we can figure out how to use it for lead generation, I'm good for that too.
Well, it sounds like you use it for this next piece where you get more referrals because, again, you're staying top of mind with a customer who already know, loves, and trusts you, and they're voting with their wallet or their credit card. They're endorsing you because they're paying you. So these are the people that are giving you referrals, right?
Right. And even with Concierge Business Solutions, right, I've got a large readership on that as well. And eventually somebody will come to me and they'll say, I've been following you for years. I've been reading your newsletter. I've been watching your Instagram posts and your videos. And I've been following you on Facebook. And now I'm ready to do something. Either I need a mentor, I need some consulting, I want software, whatever it is they want. So it does, I think having a consistent way to do it gets you those referrals and gets people to want to work with you. I know for our clients and executive errands, it reminds them to tell other people about us all the time. It's a really good method of referrals.
I think, sometimes I'll meet with people and I'll ask them, what do they depend on or what are they doing to get more business? And they say, well, a lot of our business comes from referrals. And then I'll ask them the next question. Well, what exactly are you doing to get the referrals? And then it just goes silent like crickets. They really don't have a plan. Well, that's where they fall down because maybe 1 month they might have many referrals and the next month or 2 months they won't have any. And their business is on like a roller coaster.
Right.
Because your business has grown over 2 decades, what have you done to get referrals? That would be this, hey, there's a consistent method to this process for me.
I think the biggest thing for us is maintaining that personal contact with our clients and our vendors. We regularly communicate with them, mostly through email or newsletters, but also through phone calls and meetings, but not as frequently on those two. Most of it is all through newsletters and emails. And actually, we have one piece of our software is an activity report. So when we do anything for a client, we fill out a checklist and the system sends them a notice so they can log in and see it. But attached to that are images and pictures. And so keeping a client involved in their home because again, remember, all of our clients don't live here full time. So when you're, on the other side of the country and you've got a home here and you want to know, is it secure? Are you taking care of it? Are you doing what you're supposed to? Or, is it being infested by bugs? Is there a water, all these things you're worried about. And we communicate and keep you involved in that home. I think it really goes a long way, and people will gladly refer you because there's so many horror stories about people that don't do this job properly.
Mm.
It's not hard to do it right. It's complicated. In other words, you have to uh, keep track of your data. It's more about the data than anything else. But if you want good referrals, you absolutely have to maintain a relationship. Everything's about relationships, isn't it? You have to maintain relationships with your clients. You can't just get one and then go on to the next one. It doesn't work. You really have to maintain those relationships. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
So if I understand this right, so when you talk about you get a consistent flow of referrals is because you have a process and yours is through communication.
Thank you for saying that more succinctly than I did. Yes.
Okay, good. Well, in that case, I think part of it could be is our next topic, which is networking. And I
Right.
think that's something you are very, very good at. I remember when I first met you, I'd ask you if you go to things like, Chamber of Commerce meetings, things like that, and you said yes, and you would only go with something in mind. Share that. Do
I
you
only
remember?
went, is it that I didn't know anybody? Was that it?
Well, no,
I don't
here's
remember.
something here's something that the average Chamber of Commerce member will do. We'll go to a meeting and we'll go hang out with the same people we always hang
Oh,
out
yeah.
with. And then
Yeah.
we'll leave. But you did something different. Like you went there to meet 5 people.
That's right. I forgot. I'm sorry. I
And
forgot
that's
about
okay,
that.
but
Yes.
I know it's been a minute, but it's like you would go
Yeah.
there with a purpose. That was the goal, not to hang out with people you know all the time,
To
but
get
to
five. Yeah.
actually get 5. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Tell us about that process because for some
Yeah.
people, it's not easy walking up into a group that, hey, we don't know anyone.
Well, in order to do that, you have to have a facade. I'm technically an introvert, believe it or not. I know I come across as not an introvert, but that's sort of a facade. I can play the role of extrovert, but it's not who I am. So when I would go to those events and things, I would have to force myself to be personable and get engaged and not get engaged like married, but get engaged with the people in the room. And I would set a goal for myself of getting at least 5 solid contacts. I mean, 5 people that I could call back after the meeting or after the event and then set up a one-on-one with or a lunch, something where I could further the conversation. And so I always did that. And once I got those 5, then I could relax and have fun and just, talk to people and not worry about whether or not it was productive meeting. Because some people get so overwhelmed by these networking events that they kind of they put too much stress on themselves.
Mm.
These are meant to be fun, and not everybody who's there wants to hard market either. They want to drink and do whatever. I don't drink, so I don't care about that part. But chamber mixers and things like that tend to have some element of um, going to have a cocktail after work type of a thing. And
It's a bit of a
so
social event.
thank you. That's what I was trying to say. It's a bit of a social event. So
I'm just
getting
I'm just
five.
bat, I'm just batting cleanup here.
Are you? Is that what you're doing? I appreciate that. One thing I did notice quite a bit is that there's so many people that do not know how to network properly. It's amazing to me. And these tips are pre-COVID, so I don't know if they're still appropriate today. But I would never hand somebody a business card when I first meet them. First thing I would do is ask them about, do I know you? You look familiar to me. I always said that, even if I knew I didn't know them. That's what I would icebreaker, and I would say, refresh my mind, and they would tell me who they were, and then I would start asking them questions. What do you do, and how do you do it, and what kind of services do you offer? Because when people talk about themselves, they feel like it's the start of a relationship with you. They feel like they know you. They feel like you want to hear about them. It's just human nature. You might not care less, but it's human nature to want to talk about yourself. So if you get them to talk about yourself, and then I'll say, do you have a card? And they will give me one. If they don't ask for mine, I don't worry about it. Maybe next time, maybe never. If it's never, I don't want to work with that person, but maybe next time. Because it's not about all about me. It's about finding people I can work with and help me build my business, right? So I need to know what they do so that I can figure that out. Um, and then I'm a big advocate for joining various professional organizations that are populated with people that A, you don't know, and B, are pools of people that could bring you prospective clients. For example, any of the real estate professional organizations are good for me to join. Um, the CAI, which is the Community Associations Institute for Managed Communities, HOAs, is a good organization. When I walked in there the first time many years ago, there were 150 people I didn't know. And I said, I have to join this group because I don't know any of these people, right? And so that you join and then you have to participate. When you join a networking organization, like I just recently joined BNI, and I have to tell you, I know you nagged me about that for several years to do that. It's hard for me to make a 7 a.m. commitment week in and week out. Not that I sleep in, I just don't want to do that, but I have found that being there around other professionals has made me feel much better about myself and has renewed my enthusiasm for things. So being a part of a networking group there's a lot of value in that. You have to understand what the benefit is of the group, though. With a chamber, it's all business to business marketing. Great for you because you do services for business. Great for Concierge Business Solutions, but I don't really market that locally. I do that nationally. So Executive Errands is not a business to business organization, it is a business to consumer. So knowing other networking with other business owners doesn't really help me unless they have a pool of potential clients that they would refer me to. So, I mean, you have to understand BNI, on the other hand, the one that I've just joined now, they're all about referral of you to people. So I'm hoping that turns into, that's business to consumer, where the other one is just simply business to business. So you have to understand how the networking groups work. But generally speaking, if you join groups that provide the opportunity to pools of people that you want to work with, your ideal clients, then they can turn into much more lucrative adventures. Same for you. I think you mostly, though, you would need business to business primarily, right?
Yeah, I don't do any business to consumer. It's mostly business, or it's all business to business. One of the things I want to hit you right on with when we're talking about the networking is one of the things I really like about BNI is understanding and sharing who your power team is. In other words, who should we also include in our BNI membership that is a great referral source for you? Like as an example, let's say an accountant would be, let's hypothetically say an accountant would be a good referral source for you. Well, then our job as members of your BNI group is to go out and recruit someone that is an accountant to be in the group that would be a good power team for you, or if it's an insurance agent or an attorney, whatever it is. And so that's how I feel like when it comes to this particular thing with networking at BNI, is we are out there working to say, how can we help enhance your business? But it would also grow knowing that if we got an account in our group, it's probably going to lead to more business for all of us. So it's kind of a neat thing.
I haven't seen it yet, but I think that is going to be the case. I had a one-on-one last week with the real estate agent that's in the group, and
Brenda.
Yes, well, I wasn't going to name her, but yes, Brenda.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. And I found out that she publishes a list of preferred vendors to her buyers and sellers. I didn't know anybody else who does that, and she's going to put us on there. She's really good about supporting the BNI members, which I found very noble. And I'm a big believer in honoring your sponsors. So, if you're in BNI, you need to honor them. And I've been reluctant to join for so many years because I offer so many of the services that they also offer. So it felt like a conflict to me. But I'm finding a way to work with it anyway. And several of the members are already people that I work with, so I already give them work. So that worked out okay too. But I just think that from a networking perspective, you have to physically get involved and participate, understand what you're marketing to or networking with, how to do it properly, and then how to do the follow up. You want to talk about follow up a little bit after you go to a networking group?
Sure, we could do that. The follow up is what we call the one. As you alluded to this, is hey, it wasn't you weren't trying to sell anybody or get to know them in a deep, meaningful way at that meeting. What you did is you said, hey, is this an entree into having a one-to-one? Hey, let's meet for an hour and let me get to know you more, and vice versa. And maybe now it's over lunch or it's a coffee at a Starbucks or whatever. It's more intimate that you get to know each other. That's
Right.
good follow-up. And then also, and it leads us to the next thing, which of course is your database. Is you're going to put them in your database, and in your case, it may be something where, hey, like with Brenda, and I'll mention her name, is she has her email newsletter that she sends out, that I get that once, I think it's once every 2 weeks I get that. And I enjoy opening it up because it does add value. There may be some value in there for me. So I like that. So it could be following up of that nature. Were you thinking anything different besides that?
I was just thinking like chamber stuff. When you have somebody's card, I assume they're still doing paper cards. I don't know
Hmm.
anymore. So a
Hmm.
lot of it's electronic, but us old schoolers, we like paper cards. If the font is big enough to read at my age. And so in fact, I made my cards specifically. They have an aqueous coating on the front. It's an anti UV coating and makes them more high end and nicer feel to them. But the back does not have it, so that you can specifically write a note on it if you want to, because you can't write on the aqueous. So when I meet somebody, my 5 people that I would meet, I would write a note to myself on the back about what we talked about, or when I wanted to follow up with them, or what we wanted to do, so that I can make sure that I remembered when I got home. Because quite often, after you've been there for a few hours, you don't remember who you talked to or about what. So, and you could collect a bunch of cards, but only have a few with writing on them. And those are the ones that I then do a follow up email with, so nice to meet you. I enjoy talking about blah, 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 blah. Might you have some time to get together for a one-on-one, and sort of, and give a couple of date options, just something like that. And I try to do it the same day as the meeting, so that A, it's fresh in their minds, and B, I'm prompt about taking care of this, because the minute you let it become overcome by events, you'll never get it done. So there are some things, but as far as the database goes, I do collect all of those cards. Used to be put in my database. I haven't been doing anything the last few years about building my database. It's still about only 3,000 people, and I would like it to be bigger. So maybe you and I can talk about how to accomplish that. But um, uh, I think having a database of people, whether you do a newsletter or you don't, is good, because you could market offerings and things like that. Like, I think Steve does that, right? He sends out an offer to his database for free cleaning or something on his stuff, right?
Yep. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you have to think differently than the old days of when we used to do stuff. I mean, it's interesting about how things have changed, but still, in person is still the best way to go, I think.
Yeah, I think that you can't solely depend on that, even in a situation where you might be multi-city or multi-state. There is that situation where your potential or current customer will find out who you are, and then it may be they watch a video, they watch a presentation, they read your articles and things of that nature, which we'll get into in a second. But I want to go back to your database. The beautiful thing about database is this, and it used to drive me bananas when I would get an email from Staples, and they're trying to sell me toilet paper. I'm sorry, I don't go to Staples for toilet paper. I went there for office supplies. And to me, it's a simple process we call segmentation. And so, as an example, let's say, for instance, you're in the Chamber of Commerce, you're in a BNI, and let's say you're in a Rotary Club. Well, it's so easy anymore to say, okay, whenever I get somebody's card, I'm going to put it in the right place. So when I'm communicating with those people from the Rotary Club, I'm talking about Rotary stuff that they're aware of, that makes sense to them. I'm not trying to sell them toilet paper from BNI, because that is a bad thing to do. And it's so simple. Well, here it is, about 5 or 6 years later, finally Staples has stopped sending me. And I even offered that to them. I said, hey, this is something you can so easily do. And they finally did it. So a lot of times when I have somebody that I'm working with and they have a database and it's not segmented, one of the first things we'll do is we'll send out a series of emails to help segment them. Because maybe, like in your case, is they're from the Northwest or they're from the Northeast. Communication would be different with them, right? Because one is raining, the other is snowing, or whatever. I'm just making that up. But you'd have that segmented, so when you're sending that information out, it's relevant to your database. That's one of those things that again drives me bananas. And I'll do this one little example, and then I'll turn it back over to you because I know you got something to say. So please remember it.
I'll try.
1 month ago, a client of mine said, actually 6 weeks ago, he said, Jeff, he said, I love your emails, but he said, you're too wordy. And I'm like, well, that means you don't love my emails. He says, no, I love everything you're doing. The business is great, all that kind of stuff. He said, but I'd like to get them not so wordy and more salesy. And I warned him, I said, listen, I said, here's what's going to happen.
More salesy.
Yeah, I said, here's what's going to happen. I said, I know you want to offer these two services. And I said, every time I write an email, there's a story about it. And you mentioned it early. You wrap the offer in the story, and you create the problem that maybe they weren't aware of in the story, and you happen to have a solution. Well, that's how all my emails were, right? And they were getting anywhere between 55 and 60% open rate consistently.
That's good.
Yeah, and this is, so when people say, oh, email is dead. Sorry, that's not true. It's your email, excuse my expression, your emails suck. They really do. So, and I know that's a bold statement, but here's what happened. I said, okay. I said, hey, you write the checks. This is what you do. I said, and I even told him, I said, I'm not your guy. Go hire somebody else. He says, no. He said, let's just try this. I said, okay. So I wrote these emails. They're all salesy. His unsubscribe rate went up. His open rate went down by almost 15%. And we had a meeting last week, and he says, okay, you're right. I said, but I warned you. I said, here's what's going to happen. You've now trained those people in 4 weeks, 4 emails, that they don't need to open your email because you're what? You're just trying to sell them something. I said, so please don't expect a miraculous turnaround come April 1st. And he's like, yeah, because I told him, I said, this could shoot you in the foot. So when you're doing this is how important it is to have your database segmented. And as Leslie said, use storytelling. We all like storytelling. We'll remember it better. This was a story, right? Okay, yeah. Leslie, you had something else.
Well, I was going to say, and I've forgotten what it was.
Oh, darn it.
I'll get it back.
You'll remember it.
I will. But I was going to tell you about a story I did, even when I do in-person presentations, which is the same to me as doing a newsletter, right? If I go to speak, a lot of people are afraid of public speaking, but you got to remember that they're listening because they think you're a topic expert. Whether you are or you're not, doesn't matter. They are looking at you for information. So you just have fun and just do it. I was speaking to a group of realtors at one time, and I did a whole presentation on Famous Amos. Did you know, for example, that Famous Amos was a talent scout before he started doing cookies?
I did not know that.
He discovered Simon and Garfunkel for one, right? So he was a talent agent, but then he decided to start with the cookies, and I can't remember if it was his grandmother's recipe or what it was. However, while I was doing the presentation, I had bought a case of individual sized Amos cookies packages, and I'm throwing them to the real estate agents, right? And then at the end, I turned it around to whatever I wanted them to know about Executive Errands, or being all real estate agents are solopreneurs just like we are. So I turned it around to that or whatever I did with it. But they found that so engaging and they still remember it. And it was not obviously not a hard sell. It was just information, right? I did the same thing with little chopstick holders that look like fish. I did a whole presentation about how, as a business owner, you have to just keep swimming, one foot in front of the other or one fin in front of the other. Just keep swimming in order to keep your business going. And that's a whole other topic we can talk about. But, and to this day, and it's been at least 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, people will say to me if I see them, I still have my fish on my desk, because they remember, they see the fish and they go, just keep swimming, just keep working towards the goal, just keep out there pounding the pavement, just keep meeting with people and it will happen. And that's what you have to do. And so the point is that by telling a story to your database, whether that database is a actual digital list of people or a group that you're standing in front of to talk to, if you make it interesting so they will remember you, I think it goes a long way. And if you keep it something that they will find value in, again, everything comes down to perception of value and relationships. So, and enthusiasm. I used to have a sign on my wall for years that said enthusiasm is contagious. So I would if you're just enthusiastic about what you do or what you're trying to sell or what you're trying to tell them about, it's contagious. They feel it too, And so I forgot what point I was trying to make or what I wanted to tell you before that, but that's all I have.
That's okay. I think this next piece will actually reinvigorate that thought process, because everything we've been talking about really could be under what we call content. A lot of times we think about content as, oh, that's a blog post, that's a video. Yes, it is. And here's the coolest thing about content. We're talking about marketing your business. This may be the number one source. If you listen to some of the biggest names on the planet, whether it's Gary Vaynerchuk or it's Neil Patel, and those are two huge marketing agencies, is content is what we all want from, and I talked about this in our last podcast. It's on a behavioral level. Before we make any decision on anything, what do? We do our research. We want to find out if what we're looking to purchase or who we're looking to get married to, are they legit? Are they good? Well, if you don't have a digital footprint in the marketplace nowadays, the assumption is you're probably not real. They're suspicious. Even though you may be above board and been doing this 20 years, there's that situation. So blogs, videos, podcasts like this. What else, Leslie? Articles.
Well, I take my newsletters and you turn them into video. For Concierge Business Solutions, I try to leverage my content to get the most out of it, right? So I write a newsletter, you take it and turn it into a video for me that I can then post on social media. I also write tips booklets. I call them essential guides, tips booklets on different of these topics for small business owners, and they're available on my website. And then I do webinars too about the same thing. And now we're doing a podcast. So we're taking all the same content and repackaging it so that it's available to people in whatever way they want to hear it, right? You have that content accelerator, which I think is brilliant. For the listeners, I don't think if you're aware, but Jeff created what he calls the content accelerator, and he can automatically create for a company their blog posts, their social media posts, their newsletters if they want it, all kinds of digital marketing for one low price a month. And you don't have to do anything. You can just say, here, do this. And it's going to be all about your company. Correct me if I said that wrong, but it's going to be all about your company and what you do. And it's amazing, because in this day and age, it can be overwhelming trying to keep up with all of this stuff. So I think that's a fantastic product. I wish more people would take advantage of, because it make their life so easy.
Yeah, it's that whole thing. There's a terminology that is becoming more known to people and more popular in the digital marketing world or in the marketing world. Is it has become almost like saying your name. It's omnipresent, and that means we have to get our customers in more and more places because the marketing scene is so fractured. It used to be as like, hey, you're on one of three TV channels on
Mhm.
TV. You had
Right.
the radio station, whether it was rock or country, whatever, and you had the local newspaper. That's where your audience was hanging out. So you kind of knew where I could go.
Right.
Now there's a gazillion of them. And
Yeah.
so you don't have to be on all gazillion, but you have to be on about, I would say, on at least four different platforms because that'll cover where your audiences are hanging out. And as we're doing this podcast, not only and this is something that came up the other day, says somebody said, well, why do you do the audio? And I said, or no, excuse me, why do you do the video? And I said, because everything starts with video. And I said, it's what is it? The number of people that would rather watch a video than listen, or excuse me, read about it, because we'll turn it into an article, is four times more likely.
Right.
But here's what's interesting. And this is kind of what got me started on this years ago is I have somebody that I enjoy their podcast, but they also do it on video. And so when I have the time, I might listen to a portion of it in the car and finish it on video or vice versa. So I get to experience both.
Right.
I rarely will listen to a podcast at home, but I'll watch video like I'd binge on Netflix. That's why you're on both places. So that example is like you said, hey, we're repurposing the content in many different ways.
Well, and people learn in different ways. First of all, there's all different kinds of learning, right? I think there's 5 different ways:
Mhm.
tactile, sensory, audio. There's several different ways that people learn, and so you have to address all of those. Some people read, some people listen, some people watch, right? Just to simplify it, and it's the same with digital marketing these days. Some people, like we were just talking off air, I hate TikTok marketing when it comes to not TikTok, but text marketing. When I get it, it just annoys the crap out of me. But like you said, all the young ones like the texting, right? I'm just old. I just don't enjoy texting, but they do. And so, and people want their information faster and faster and faster, and smaller snippets with more value in each snippet. So trying to figure out how to develop that, which is one of the things that you've done. You've streamlined that, which is immense respect for that. I'm still kind of stone aging it with the video, the newsletter, then the video, and the blog post.
It's coming along though.
It is coming along. You're dragging me with you. But what I'm saying is that it's necessary to have all those different pieces these days because you don't know who's going to be watching or listening. That's the bottom line. And the new generations, Gen Z and Gen Y and Gen who understands, uh, they're all looking at things different ways, and it's faster and faster and faster. It's just amazing to me how this works. So I think it's good to have a tool that gives you all the different options in one place. I love that, the content accelerator. I think that's really helpful because again, it's overwhelming, this stuff. I mean, I personally have somebody who does my newsletter formatting, pictures, and publication. I have somebody else who does my posts on social media. I have you who helps me with videos. And then I've got Tamsin in South Africa who's now helping me with marketing my
Mm.
new educational series and the software that we license out. So, you end up with, would it be nice to have just one place? Maybe, maybe you could do it all. Um, Again, it's like anything. Over the years, I've got these people who help me, and then I'm loyal to them, and I'm not willing to give them up just for one other thing. At least not right now. But you do need all these options and content. My favorite content story is about Miguel Ruiz. You know who Miguel
Mm.
Ruiz
Sure,
is?
sure.
He wrote The Four Agreements, my favorite book of all time. If you haven't read it out there, listeners, read it. It'll change your life. It really will. Not easy to do, but sure makes a difference. But he has other books, but he markets that one almost exclusively. It's his most popular by far book. And I am shocked at all the different creative ways he uses to market it. And it's the same thing it's the same book over and over again, but his social media posts and his content is really innovative and interesting. And so you can leverage your existing content. I have a book right here somewhere called Making the Most Out of Everything You've Got, or something like that. Talking specifically about how you take your content and repurpose it over and over again. Once you get it, you don't have to necessarily keep making new. You just have to keep marketing it, right?
I call it the shampoo method: lather, rinse, repeat.
Repeat. Yeah.
You know, in a kind of a funny way, but very true. What you say is, I will often see people, and I've been guilty of it, is we create a webinar and we do the webinar, and then we create a different webinar, and we create a different webinar instead of saying, wait a minute, why don't you just do the same webinar and just market it more often? And what happens is you see exponential growth because you just get better and better at it. And for me, that's the difference of an amateur and a professional. An amateur will do one presentation new over and over again. A professional or an expert will do the same one over and over again. And so by the time they get to the 10th or 15th, they own that content. And I think
it's so boring to do it over and over again.
Well, you know, think about musical artists and your favorite songs. You love to hear that.
I know. I think about that.
You know, you think about some of these artists that are 70 years old, nothing wrong with 70, but they've been doing it since they were 18, and they have to do those because we're in the audience going, we want to hear that song. And they're like, but they do it with such enthusiasm. That is an expert. That's an expert.
Yeah. I saw Kiss recently in concert, and, you know, Stanley, what's his name? The guy with the tongue, whatever his name is.
I don't know.
He's so old now that he had to go off stage between each song to take a rest and then come back. I noticed he was, at least that's what I'm assuming he was doing, taking a rest. And so, but the songs, you're right. You know, I think about that with people who do concerts. They're doing the same concert day after day after day, or comedians who do the same shtick day after day. And I don't know how they make it fresh, but they do, because they're professionals and experts, and they make it fresh. And that's what you have to do as a small business owner. You have to get your content, even if you just say, okay, I'm going to create this content. It's just this much content. And then market that, so that you build a brand and you build the awareness and you get people knowing who you are. Because, you know, the key here is not just to bring in new business, but to get it so people know who to refer when they have somebody who needs you, right? And so it takes, I don't know what the number is these days, but it takes like 7 times or 8 times of hearing something before you remember enough to just, like when I go to speak to real estate groups, I know I have to do it consistently for a while because I'm out of sight, out of mind when I don't. But once I do it enough times, they remember me, and then they get my newsletter, and then they remember me, and then, you know, and then it helps. It really does help. So all this content is key, having good content.
All right. Well, let's go back through this real quickly and just kind of recap, because we're talking about marketing your business and having 5 sources. We talked about Leslie's newsletter and really how she uses that through storytelling, and it turns into referrals because people see who she is, what she does. Not only that, and she didn't say it, but how she takes care of you after the sale. And that happens through her newsletters. The next one is networking. Networking is, like we talked about, different organizations that you may be involved in, and take a look and say, hey, is this organization, does it have either the people that are my customers, or are they the source to my customers? One quick side note to that: 2 of my new clients, they work in the ultra high net worth marketplace. And I said, listen, I said, we can't go out in Facebook time. We can't do Facebook ads and things like that for these people. They're not in there. We have to
Right.
find out in their circle of people, who do they trust that we can have contact with? That's who we need to get with. And then we'll become a referral to them. So when you think about that and you look at a group, what is the value? And Leslie made it so important when if you join the Chamber of Commerce, it's different than joining BNI. The outcomes are different, right? The next one is database. And database, I think, is probably the one that has, this is the highest ROI out of all of your marketing. I'm talking social media, it doesn't matter. 42% or 4,200% ROI. That means for every $1 you put in, it's worth $42. That's a 4,200% return on your investment. So before you kick email aside, keep that in mind. How can I grow my database? In fact, there's a book out there that says, if you just had 1,000 names in your database, you could live a very, very successful life as a business. And finally, of course, is content. All of this is content. Like what we're talking about today, guess what? We're going to cut this up and it will be content that we can use throughout both of our businesses, because these kind of interviews, bits and pieces, will be what I call breadcrumbs that will lead them to both of our businesses or just to follow us on our podcast. So Leslie, any last thoughts before we wrap up today?
No, I think of all of the stuff we talked about, content's the most important because you can repurpose it for all the other things. So you have to have good content. And if you don't feel that you're a writer, if you don't feel that you are able to create videos on your own, you're not an influencer and you need help, people like myself and like Jeff are here to help you. That's what Jeff, that's his thing. So you definitely want to try to reach out to one of us and get some help because it's affordable. It's worth it. And once you have it, you can use it over and over and over again, which is really important.
Well, Leslie, as always, it is a treat for me to spend some time with you. And this has been an exceptional day to be able to do this today. Marketing, this is something I love to talk about. And because I live in that world and you have for the last, probably more than 2 decades.
Careful.
Yeah, it's all good. And it's just been a treat. If you like what you hear, please refer this to somebody else. This is, if you will, this is our database. This is our newsletter. Please refer us to somebody that said, hey, you know what? I got some good information from them. And also, again, reach out to Leslie specifically or to myself. And I just want to say thank you for joining us. Leslie, thank you again.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you guys to our listeners and for believing in us and understanding that we're here to help you. As I say on some of my business, one detail at a time will make your business better. And that's what you're going to learn here. Talk to you next time.
Thanks, Leslie. Bye-bye.
Bye.